Welcome to A Founder's Life. I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and how we pursue a more balanced and meaningful life along the way. This podcast is brought to you by Thanks, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. Email founders@thanks.com, that's THANKZ.com, with the subject line of Founder's Life, and you'll receive preferred pricing. Now, I'm excited today to be joined by Brad McGinnity. Brad, thanks for joining. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Leo. As you said, my name is Brad McGinnity, based in Raleigh, North Carolina. I have spent my entire career on the sales and marketing side of SaaS companies. Since 2006, I suppose. Came up through the sales track, started a company back in 2011 while I was in business school that was marketing software. Then I moved into HR software at companies called 15Five and another one called Hone. And today I'm the chief revenue officer at a company called Tithely, which is online giving software for churches.
Excellent. Thank you. Would you like to talk a little bit about a bit more about what brought you to where you are today? So sort of your journey. And then a little more about what the current business is doing for your clients. And your clients all churches, or what are you really doing for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really stumbled into software sales. I know that there's lots of people coming out of college nowadays who are specifically pursuing a career in software. Back in 2005, I was not doing that and just needed a job. And got lucky to go to a startup and do sales. And it was a couple of great founders. It was email marketing software. And as I stumbled into startups and sales, found that it was something that I really loved. And so decided that was where I wanted to spend my career. And it's worked out extraordinarily well in the last 20 years. In terms of Tithely, based on our name, you can imagine that we probably mostly serve churches. People tithe to their church and do those donations. We are a vertical SaaS fintech product. And so you have to be a nonprofit to work with Tithely, but most of our customers are churches. But we have synagogues and mosques and schools and childcare centers and things like that who are all somehow processing payments or using our other CRM and messaging, email, SMS capabilities, website, a church app, things like that in order to stay in touch with their members, constituents, whatever those people might be in relation to the organization. We are about 50,000 customers. We're in 7 or 8 different countries, and it's been a lot of fun. It's really neat to bring together something that I love and I'm passionate about, which is kind of Christian faith and that type of stuff, with my professional expertise on the sales and marketing side.
Excellent. Helping people give back. And talk a little bit about how family looks for you.
Yeah. I got married young and had kids young. So my first daughter was born when I was 26, which was a month before I started full-time business school. And my second daughter was born a month after I graduated from school. And at that point, I had committed to co-founding this marketing analytics company with a couple of other guys. And so with business school in there, I ended up going 2.5 years without a paycheck while doing school and then the startup, which was a blast. And my wife felt was a great ROI on my MBA. And then a few years later, we had daughter number 3. So today, my daughters are a junior in high school, a freshman in high school, and a 5th grader. And so it is as you can imagine, a very busy life.
Yep, I don't need to imagine. I remember it well.
Yep, absolutely. And this August, my wife and I will celebrate our 20th anniversary. So she has somehow stood by me through all of this chaos.
That's lovely. And what do you like to do for fun?
There's 2 sides to that, right? So there's, hey, give me a Saturday afternoon and some nice weather. What am I doing for fun, right? So mountain biking, water skiing. In the winter, I'm snow skiing. Love to play ultimate frisbee and frisbee golf. I run a lot, which is partially for exercise. I sometimes enjoy it, but much prefer to be out there on the mountain bike if I can. I also, at 41, I started to play soccer. Had never played soccer in my whole life. And I joined a soccer league, which is over 30 co-ed rec. So we play our games on Thursday nights. Games kick off anywhere between 8:15 and 9:45 at night. And it's a blast. I have a lot of fun playing soccer. I have no foot skills, so I just play defense because I'm quick enough to knock the ball out. And so then if it's a Saturday afternoon, a typical Saturday afternoon, I would say I'm probably hanging out with my kids on the side of a soccer field or doing something like that. And so I obviously have a great time with my children and love them very much and enjoy it. It's a different form of fun than the leisure that we sometimes think of, though.
Definitely. What else do you like to do for health? So if you look at some of the stuff that you've talked about just then, but what else? And health for me, yes, you got the physical, the running and soccer, etc. There's mental health, there's nutrition, there's sleep. What else do you look at when you look at health?
Yeah. A lot of folks are familiar with a program that makes its way around the internet called 75 Hard. And back in December of 2020, I had come across 75 hard and was starting to think about doing 75 hard or hard 75, whichever way it goes. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's really hard. You go no alcohol for 75 days. You have to, by the way, do 75 consecutive days. That's the whole point of the program. If you miss day 32, you go back to day 0, and the goal is to go 75 days. So you're like no alcohol. I think you read 15 pages of a book. You drink a gallon of water. You take a progress picture of yourself with your shirt off every single day in the mirror. I think they want you to meditate maybe for 10 minutes. You have to follow some kind of a diet program as well, eating program. The highlight of this thing is that you have to do 2 45-minute workouts every single day, one of which has to be outdoors. So I was thinking about doing this. I'm like, this 2 45-minute workouts, this is going to be a lot. Simultaneously, a friend of mine was thinking about doing some kind of like online Facebook community group type of thing, a cohort model where it's kind of Renaissance man. Do some mental stuff, do some physical stuff, learn a new skill. So he and I kind of combined these 2 ideas. And then my wife was making fun of us, saying that we didn't have the courage to do 75 hard. So she started calling it Soft 60. And so we put together this like 60-day program, which included some of these elements. And so that has kind of laid the foundation of my health for the past 4 years. So most days, I drink a gallon of water. Before we hopped on here, Leo, you and I were talking about how I'm eating Lara bars because they don't include sugar. Prior to me doing Soft 60 for the first time, I would consume enormous amounts of sugar on a daily basis. I did not care how much sugar I consumed, and if it was food and it was tasty to me, I would eat it. And so I have not completely, but I've largely eliminated sugar from my diet. As part of the program, I also went gluten-free, not because I have a gluten allergy. It's just most foods that have gluten in them are probably also not healthy for me. My wife's gluten-free and I have a gluten-free daughter, so it's pretty easy to do that in my house. And so I made an effort to largely eliminate gluten from my diet. I found that when I would drink a gallon of water, be alcohol-free, gluten-free, and sugar-free, my energy levels just spiked. I would love to get 8 hours of sleep every day. I think on my watch, it tells me most nights I get around 6 hours and 15 minutes. I really need about 7 hours and 15 minutes to operate without brain fog. And so I was finding that I could get 6 hours of sleep every night as long as I was eating in these ways. I was also simultaneously exercising for 45 minutes every single day. And you put this whole package of stuff together, and I had a ton more energy. I was a lot more alert. My lethargy, which has kind of been a constant battle for me, largely went away. So I've spiked. I think I've done the Soft 60 program, which is 60 days long. I think I've done it probably now like 7 or 8 times since just January of 2021. I did it 3 times last year. In the calendar year 2025, I did it 3 times. And the goal of last year was, how do I just make this now like my regular life? And not like this 60-day blitz, but just like my regular life. And so that's helped me to establish a lot more healthy eating and drinking and exercise habits. Long-winded answer to your question, but a lot of it for me is this Soft 60.
That's great. I think it's about finding what works for you. I've never tried any of those. I know both of my kids have done 75 hard.
Mm-hmm.
And they both got benefit out of it, and they both have kept parts of it long term. So long term being my son did it a year ago, my daughter did it probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think it's great at working out what you can still keep and becomes a long-term part of your daily habits.
Yeah. Last week, a friend of mine sent me an Instagram post, and it was a guy talking about infinity medium. And it was him basically saying, hey, I did 75 hard. It was kind of insane. And so now I'm going to go forever on medium. So like, I'm not going to never drink, but I'm only going to drink socially, and I'm never going to get drunk. Right. And so, I'm not going to work out every single day twice for 45 minutes, and one of them has to be outside, but I'm going to make fitness a daily part of my schedule. So it was interesting to hear him talk about infinity medium. And I was like, Soft 60, infinity medium. Like, we figured it out.
Maybe I should join one of your programs. I'm already doing all of that anyway.
There you go. The one trick on this thing, and this was a spin that we did, and I think, by the way, the 75 hard program, what you're doing by yourself, it's really stinking hard. And by the way, the guy calls it, he's like, it's not a fitness program, it's not a health program, it's not a diet program. He says this is a mental toughness program because it's hard. It really is hard. So one of the spins that we put on Soft 60, and I've done it every time that I've done Soft 60, I've done it with an accountability partner. And if either one of us screws up one activity one time, we both go back to day 0. And so on a lot of those days when I would otherwise want to quit, It's knowing that I'm not just sending myself back to day zero. I'm sending my accountability partner back to day zero. That's the deal breaker on it. And we just use an Apple Note and you just kind of check the boxes as you go through.
I love that. My son's, when he did it with two mates. I don't know if one of them had failed, if they'd have all gone back to zero, but they were accountability for each other. They did, and there's that peer pressure of, I'm not going to be the guy who fails when my mates are able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. To your point.
And by the way, he's in Boston, so it was in the winter. That is not a fun 45-minute outdoors in the winter.
No, they picked the wrong time of year to do that. The very first time that I did it, I said I was doing it with my friend who we kind of combined these two programs together. And he's one of my college roommates. And every year we do our roommate reunion weekend. There's 9 of us who live together. And we were like, I think we were probably on like day 12. And the roommate reunion weekend is kicking off. And he's like, and for some reason, I wasn't going to be able to make it that year. But he was like, I want to drink bourbon on our reunion weekend. Can I drink bourbon? Can I get an exception? It was like, his name's Brad also. It's like, no, Brad, you can't get an exception, but you can just send us both back to day zero. I won't stop you from drinking, but we will go back to day zero. So if it's worth it for you, we'll just go back to day zero, or you can just not drink, your call. But it's like, no, you don't get an exception. We just go back to day zero.
And what did he decide?
She did not drink.
Nice. And so, tell me, how does it for you a balanced life look? And I often talk about balance as that center line, because none of us are always in balance. You're non-stop working, you're with the kids, whatever it is. But overall, how does a balanced life look for you?
Yeah. I had a mentor of mine say to me when I was probably 24, 25, he was like, your problem, Brad, is that you want to have it all. And so these words have been kind of echoing in my brain for last 15, 16 years, whatever it is, since he said it to me. And so as I look at the primary roles in my life, right, I have roles of husband, father. Those are 2 of the really big ones. Friend, employee, worker, boss, CRO. I have an administrative job in my own household to make sure we pay the bills on time. And when we got a water leak, somebody takes care of that and all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of how I think about it is a little bit of a GPA concept, what's my report card? And it's going to be really hard if you have any kind of high standards for yourself, which I imagine most of your listeners have high standards. That's why they're listening to this podcast. It's really hard to get straight A's. And so I'm a little bit can I get an A in the subject that matters for this period of time? And maybe I'll allow myself to get a C in this other subject. But overall, my total GPA is going to be pretty good. And so maybe I'm kind of doing B pluses everywhere. And so, for me with young children, they are incredibly hands-on and you got to be really present. And we're always addicted to our phones. It's just how can I get rid of a phone and just be really, truly engaged with quantity of time, not just quality time with my kids? And that season, my oldest is 16, my youngest is 11. So I've basically been in this season now for 16 years because my youngest is still 11. My 16-year-old barely cares that I exist anymore, but my 11-year-old still very much cares. So it's a very long season. And so I think what I try to do is be really present where I am in the thing that I'm supposed to be doing, while simultaneously making mental peace with the fact that I literally cannot get to everything. I'm going to disappoint somebody. I'm going to drop the ball on some project. And so can I prioritize my time so that when I get to the end of the day, I know that today was a good day and I was present doing the things that I needed to be doing to the best of my ability for that one thing for today. And if you can stack that on top of each other, most days of the week, you'll probably get to a pretty good place. And so, there's the balance. And the other soccer players' parents, all the other parents on the sidelines, they always make fun of me because during soccer practice, they just sit around and talk to each other the whole time. I got an hour and a half on the side of the soccer field. I'm exercising or I'm working. I'm not just hanging out with the other parents because I got stuff I got to do. So how can I make that time as productive as possible? Because you just can't fit it all into the end of it. So as you said, it is a balance. There is a bit of a center line. I try to be thoughtful about where do I need to get an A, this week, this month, this quarter. Where can I afford to get a C right now? So my yard is awful, much to my wife's dismay. But it'll still be here in 10 years when my kids are gone, and I'll deal with the yard then.
And you could pay someone to do the yard if you want, because you decide that your time, it's more valuable to spend the time with your kids than, that's the other option.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I love the way you look at it. My report card in life probably wouldn't be too bad. In school, it was terrible. Definitely not yeah, education was never a strong point for me. And what has been a pivotal moment in your life?
That's a good question. So I think there's probably kind of two really pivotal moments for me. So one would be as a sophomore in high school, or the summer right before sophomore year. My parents came to my sister and I and said, "Hey, we're getting a divorce." And I was living in Baltimore, Maryland as a kid. And I'd had a very picturesque, wonderful childhood. You know, we were the happiest family on the block, and present and engaged parents, and a wonderful little childhood that all of a sudden came just crashing down. A few months after that, my dad told us that he was moving to Houston, Texas, halfway across the country. And so coming out of that experience, I became extremely, extremely, extremely committed to the ideas of like, I am never getting a divorce, and I'm going to do everything I can to make my family's life and my marriage thrive if I get married one day. And I know that for a lot of people, you know, especially in the modern age, they're like, you know, we can move in and out of marriage. And if the partner's not helping you become a better version of yourself, then you should move on from them and all that kind of stuff. I kind of get it, kind of don't. But for me personally, it's like, no, we're doing this. This is a lifelong covenant that we have made to one another. And so if we're here, we better be committed to making this relationship the best we can possibly make it, because neither one of us is going anywhere. So do you want to be miserable for the rest of our lives or thriving together for the rest of our lives? And so for my wife and I think that has, and she also comes out of divorced parents or divorced family. And so for the two of us together, I think that has been a really critical, pivotal, foundational place of alignment that we work out of together, that has set the foundation for our relationship and for my children's home that they're growing up in. Another one is the startup that I worked for, that I helped co-found. So I guess I worked at several startups, but then I helped co-found, and we were paying ourselves way under market. We were, we're venture-backed companies, so we're spending more than we're making. And there was a few times throughout that journey when we were like, a month away from running out of cash. And at that point, I had 2 kids. My wife was working, but money was really tight. I'm kind of living like mostly paycheck to paycheck. And the belief in myself, the belief in my team, in what we were doing to kind of stare down, like not being unemployed, the company going bankrupt, like running out of money, all that kind of stuff. And knowing that like we're going to figure this out. Like my family will be okay. I will be okay. And so that has been that experience when I was, in my late 20s, early 30s. We went through it a couple different times. I think that has given me a lot of kind of confidence and freedom later in my career to say that like, hey, if this stuff happens at work, it's not going to be the end of the world. We're going to be fine.
That's great. It makes a lot of sense. And if you were going to give one piece of advice to an aspiring entrepreneur, what would that be?
To inspire an entrepreneur. There's a lot of cliched advice out there. And so I think I would offer 2 things, one of which will be a cliche and maybe one's not as much of a cliche. So the first one is, everybody's going to think you're nuts. Nobody's going to understand what you're doing. You won't be able to explain why you're doing this thing to your mom who thinks that you need a dependable paycheck. And like, let it all go. Do it anyway. Do it anyway. And by the way, don't do it because you think there's going to be a great exit one day and you're going to be retired for the rest of your life in 5 to 10 years. That may happen, and I hope that happens for you. But don't do it because of that. Don't do it for the money. Do it because you love it and because the journey's worth it, even if you don't reach the destination that you may have been hoping for. The second one, I'm one of these personalities. I enjoy exercise, but life is super busy, and so I don't always make time for it. And so what's made the difference for my life when it comes to exercising is I don't try to exercise 4 days a week or 5 days a week. I exercise literally every single day for at least 30 minutes. And that could just be as simple as going for a walk. But every single day, I'm going to exercise. And so when I wake up in the morning, the question is not, will I exercise today or will I not exercise today? The question is, when am I going to exercise today? When am I going to fit this in my schedule? So I got a stationary bike that I set up at a computer. I've got a walking mat that I set up at a computer. I do a lot of meetings with AirPods in while I'm running. And so as an entrepreneur, taking care of your health is so important. You will remember more things. You'll have better mental clarity. You'll have more energy. You'll sleep better. There's so many benefits that come to your work because of exercise. And so you have to make that commitment to exercise. And so if you make the decision to say, I'm going to exercise every single day, no matter what, it'll change the decision that you're making, which is not, I do it today, but rather, when do I fit this into my life? And I would encourage you to do that.
Absolutely love that. I'm also someone who works out every day and often multiple times. And, I love the, going to exercise every day. And I think, that whole walking pad, I used to have one at my desk when I had a desk.
Yep.
No matter now, but I had a standing desk and I could pop it on, especially if I was doing meetings that didn't need me to talk and it was more listening. I'd, pop up the desk, hop on the standing treadmill. And I actually bought one that also could handle running.
Yep.
So if I didn't have time to get outside for a run, I could get in I wouldn't do like a half an hour plus run because they're not running machines, not great for your body, but I'd do like a 10, 15-minute run between like a little quick sprint between meetings and it just felt better. And I think, I also believe all of what you're talking about leads into health span. So not living longer, but being healthy until we die. So not only will it help you focus more when you're as an entrepreneur, once you've retired and you're, sitting there into the sunset or whatever, you want to keep your mind and body healthy.
Yep.
So,
yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy. The research is like minimum, go walk for 10 minutes after a meal. That's all it takes, like minimum. Which probably isn't easy to do in Manhattan, but I live in the suburbs. Like it's easy to do. And as you said, like get a walking mat, do it in a meeting. It's fine. People won't care.
Yeah. And how can people find you?
Yes. Easiest is LinkedIn/McGinity, McGinity. Picked up that handle back in 2006 when LinkedIn was real small. So that's the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn at Brad McGinnity with the /McGinity.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Appreciate it very much, Leo. This was a lot of fun.
And thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and please leave a review.